In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to remove grain if you have a little bit of grain inside of your shot. So grain can happen because of the ISO or your exposure is too low and you artificially brought your exposure up. It could be that there's just a lot of noise inside that environment and it's causing some artifacting in your image. So there's not a whole lot of grain in this shot, but I'm going to show you how to use it anyways in case you need to. And what we can do is we can add it to the effect that we already have for our key light. So if I go up to Effect, let me select the layer first, go up to Effect, come all the way down to Noise and Grain. There's some options here. We're going to remove grain right here. Once I do that, we're going to see that we have our grain, remove grain effect added. I'm going to close these down so we can see this a little bit more. The first thing I hope that you noticed was that this big box kind of appeared right here. This is our preview box. This is a pretty RAM intensive effect. So it gives you this preview box before you do the entire image. So especially if you're working 4K, 6K, 8K, 12K, it can get a little difficult to work with. So we give you a sample so that you can apply what you need to and then apply it to everything. If your box here is not in a really good place, this is actually a pretty good one for this shot. You can always open up your preview region and using the left and right or the X and Y, you can move this around. And you can also just select this little target and say, I want to go here where the eyes are. I want to go over here where the hair is, wherever it's going to be easiest and best for you to see. My recommendation is to find somewhere that's a little bit dark. So down here is where the most grain is in this shot. So I'm going to come down here to have this work on this side. Plus I get a little bit kind of a and B testing here about what we're looking at. So I'm focusing on these areas to make sure that my grain looks okay in this shot. The rest of these are just going to dictate how this looks. So I'm good where that's at, so I'm going to close that down. So now we're going to go into our noise reduction settings and fine tuning. And there's some other ones, but I'm just going to focus on these two for now because they get us to about where we need to be. So by default, it's going to be set to 3 passes at a strength of 1 of the reduction. But I'm going to crank this up really, really far to show you kind of what's happening. And better yet, I'm going to move my preview window actually for demonstration purposes over here to the eye. Because you should see here that it became very, very blurry. That's essentially what this is doing as a noise reduction. This is a really high noise reduction. Remember, it comes in as a 1. And once we get above like around the 6 or 7 area here, we're going to start to see things get really, really blurry. The image itself isn't blurry. What's becoming blurry are the channels. And right now what we're telling After Effects to do is we're asking it in our mode here to use a multi-channel method. I'm going to put this back down to 1 so that we can look at the channels individually. What we're going to do is we're going to use a single channel method. And once that gets there, we can open up our single layers here individually. They're all set to 1 because they're all set to 1 up here. But we can actually move these individually. To look at the individual layers, we need to come down here, or the individual channels. We come down here to this spot where these red, green, and blue balls are. You click on it, and you can choose between your red, green, blue, alpha area here. If I choose alpha, it's going to look a lot like how the screen mat looked. So you can always look at your alpha like this as well, which is nice. But we're going to focus here on red. Okay, red has a level of grain. Let's come down here, and we can see that grain moving if I scrub in the red channel. I can look at the green channel and see that it's a lot less. Green channel is always going to be a little bit less greeny. That's kind of or grainy. That's a big reason why we use green screens instead of blue screens, because blue screens are going to be mostly the more noisy, or the noise patterns are just a little bit bigger. So red has a lot of noise, but it's kind of more compact and a little bit more small. And then blue is typically going to have bigger, wider noise. That's not always true. It's just kind of a generalization. But because they're all different, because green has very little, red has kind of small, and blue has kind of larger ones, we want to be able to reduce the noise independently. So I'm going to move my region again back down here to where we had it. And now that I'm in the blue channel, I'm just going to crank up the blue noise until it becomes soft and it doesn't feel like it's as noisy as in other spots. So I'm cranking it up pretty high here. We're at about 4. I'm just going to leave it there to see what happens. Green I'm actually pretty happy with. I'm going to leave that at 1 just in case. But red is kind of noisy as well as that goes up. I'm going to start to bring that up until that noise starts to be a little bit reduced. Maybe about right there. Let's call that good. So now I'm going to take this and go back into my RGB mode. I'm going to hit my shift question mark so I can get full screen here. And now I get to look at this image. It's hard to tell with it out like this. I'm going to come in a little bit more, and I'm going to notice here between this area and this area that this one here is a lot less grainy. Now remember, it's only happening inside of this box. So once I'm done here, I am going to go up into my viewing mode, and I'm going to do final output, and it's going to apply that to the entire image itself. So it seems like I moved this image a little bit. Let me recompose here, make my character look like he's supposed to be where he's supposed to be. That is close enough. And now I have that grain removed. I'm going to turn it on and off just to make sure it's not too aggressively soft. It's a little bit soft, but I don't know if it's going to be noticeable after I start compositing. And that's how you take away the grain from your image. It's going to help in if you do this with your green screening, after the green screening, anywhere that you see that the grain is going to be problematic, that'll help you to get a better key. All right, have fun using your grain remover, and look forward to seeing your projects. Thanks.